In this episode of our 7-part series for building a stand and tree mount for your bottle beehive system, I'm going to show you how to add a small hive beetle trap to your bottle beehive system. Even if your area doesn't have hive beetles, adding a tray will allow you to monitor for varroa mites. Start with a brownie pan from the dollar store. It should be no larger than 12 3/4 by 7 7/16 on the outside of the pan. Pan dimensions are often stated on the inside of the pan, so measure first. Use a pair of pliers to bend one of the end handles down to shorten the overall length of the pan. Now, with that done, our overall length on the outside is now down to 12 inches. That's about the size we want it. Next, you will need a piece of number 8 wire mesh large enough to cover the brownie pan. You can get this on Amazon or at your local Ace or True Value hardware store. It is important that it is number 8 mesh and not regular window screen, since that is the size we need to allow the beetles to fall through. Now we're going to attach our mesh onto the top of the tray. You want to get this as flat as you can get it to avoid more headaches later on. We're going to start by gluing one long edge. We want a fair amount of glue here because we need this to stay attached, especially in the next step where we're cutting it. We're going to align this edge, and we want it so that it is even along the edge of the pan and not sticking over. Otherwise, we're going to have more cutting to do. And to the back of the pan, but not sticking past the back. And we're going to press this into the glue and let it dry. Continue gluing around the edges of the pan, making sure you've got a good connection and making sure that you let it dry completely before trying to move on.
Like and subscribe.
Continuing on around the edge, not grabbing the hot glue gun by the hot end. And just like with the other edges, press and let it dry. With that done, I'm going to take and run an extra little bead of glue along this edge to try and fill in the little fillet between the rounded edge of the brownie pan and the screen. The reason I'm going to do this is we're going to have to cut this edge, and I want to make sure that it's got as much adhesion to the pan as possible. You also want to make sure that the glue that you already have on the top doesn't soften up from the heat of the glue you just added and pull away from the pan. So press it down and hold it till it dries. Now comes the hard part. We got to trim off all the excess with our hacksaw, trimming right along the edge of the pan this way. You can cut this piece here so that it follows the shape of the handle. You can cut it off across midway on the handle, or I like to cut it off about 1/4 to 1/2 inch, a 1/2 inch longer than the handle, so that I can then fold it up under the handle and glue it to give me a safer edge so I don't pierce myself on the sharp parts of the screen. The whole point of gluing it first was so that if you don't have a better way to cut it, you can get it cut to size and you have something to hold it while you're cutting it. Cutting as close to the edge of the pan as possible will keep you from having any bits sticking over. Also, you'll save yourself some grief if you cut with the pushing stroke down only and not saw by pulling up and back. If you pull it up, you're more likely to pull it out of the hot glue. Be patient and you'll get there. Here is where I bent the edge over, and I want to protect those raw edges, specifically protect my fingers from those raw edges along here. I did not cut this long enough. I folded it over using pliers. It may be ugly, but it should be effective against hive beetles. I think I forgot to push the record button on the last one, but basically what I'm doing is you want to go around and you want to clean up any of the excess glue along the edges that might interfere with the tray sliding in and out of your stand. More importantly, any of these strings that you found need to be cut off because they're just like a spider web to your bees, and that's not going to be a good thing, especially if it's inside of your bottle hive. Now we're going to add some guides to the base for the tray that you just made. Next up, we have our stand back in position, and we're going to center the pan on this bottom. You can do it by eyeball, or you can be a little more methodical about it. With that done, and it doesn't have to be exactly aligned, I'm going to put the pan upside down and I'm going to draw a line the length of the pan on both sides. That's my minimum distance. Next, I'm going to take 2 of our 5-gallon paint sticks and we're going to glue them into position so that there is a 1/16 of an inch clearance on either side. But we don't want more than a 1/16 of an inch. So when we have these glued into place, the goal is that this should slide out easily, both upside down and right side up. That's the goal of what we're about to do. You can cut them with a box knife if that's all that you have, or a hacksaw. If you've got power tools, even better. Glue one of these sticks to the outside of that line that we drew for the edge of the pan. We don't care if we have extra glue that blobs out on this side. We don't want glue to the inside because it may interfere with the pan. Doing this with 1x2s would potentially be better. While that's cooling, I'm going to go ahead and put some reinforcing glue on the outsides. By now your progress should look like this. In the next episode, we will add the platform for the bottle and reinforcements on the sides.